There are machines that fight wars, and then there are machines that define them. This one didn't just fly, it sang. The Supermarine Spitfire, a fighter so elegant, so impressively agile, that even its enemies admired it. A machine that arrived at Britain's darkest hour and turned the sky into a stage for courage. Today, we're diving into the story of the aircraft that saved a nation and inspired a generation. The Spitfire became a symbol of resilience. It was proof that engineering brilliance and national grit could stand against overwhelming odds. In a time when the world felt fragile, the Spitfire was a reminder that ingenuity could be a weapon. Because every so often, history produces a machine that becomes more than metal and rivets, a machine that slips the boundaries of engineering and wanders into the realm of myth. The Spitfire didn't ask for that role. It didn't roll out of the factory thinking that it would carry the weight of a nation on its wings. But when the moment came, it rose, gracefully, defiantly, into the storm. This was the aircraft that looked fast even when it was parked. An aircraft that could turn so tightly it felt like it was bending the sky. An aircraft that made young pilots feel 10 feet tall. It put fear into the enemy. And still makes grown adults stare upward like kids seeing their first fireworks. This is the Spitfire. Before the Spitfire became a legend, it was just an idea on the mind of one man, Reginald Joseph Mitchell. Mitchell wasn't a poet, but he designed airplanes like one. Mitchell had a habit of looking at machines the way artists look at canvases. In 1917, after an apprenticeship at a locomotive engineering works company, he joined Supermarine Aviation Works, a small company building flying boats. And that's when everything clicked. The moment he stepped into the workshop, surrounded by wood frames, fabric skins, and the smell of dope and varnish, something inside of him ignited. Mitchell quickly rose through the ranks and was promoted to chief designer, chief engineer, and technical director. So when the British Air Ministry asked for a new high-performance fighter in 1934, Mitchell just didn't submit a design, he submitted a statement. The Spitfire's elliptical wing wasn't just beautiful, it was a masterpiece of aerodynamic problem-solving that became the aircraft's signature. Its graceful curves reduced drag so effectively that the Spitfire could slice through the air with a smoothness no rival could match, giving it that legendary roll rate and turning ability pilots raved about. The wing's thin cross-section allowed it to stay stable at high speeds while still delivering superb lift in tight dogfights, a combination that felt almost unfair to opponents. And beyond the engineering, the silhouette itself became iconic, a wing shape so distinctive that even today, a single glance upward is enough to know exactly what's passing overhead. Mitchell was diagnosed with cancer during development. He pushed through the pain, surgeries, and exhaustion to finish the aircraft he believed Britain desperately needed. He died in 1937, never seeing the Spitfire enter combat, never hearing the Merlin engine roar, never knowing his creation would become immortal. If the Spitfire had a soul, it was the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, a 27-liter, liquid-cooled V12 that produced over 1,000 horsepower in early marks, and more than double that in later variants. It didn't just power the Spitfire, it powered victory. The Merlin supercharger gave the Spitfire its high-altitude bite. Its smooth power delivery made the aircraft feel alive in the pilot's hands. And sound? Well, if angels drove muscle cars, they'd sound like a Merlin at full throttle. But it wasn't perfect. Negative G dives caused fuel starvation, a flaw German pilots exploited early in the war. British engineers fixed it with a brilliant, simple device called Miss Schilling's orifice, named after the engineer who invented it. Yes, that was the real name, and yes, pilots loved saying it. It was a small brass restrictor plate or washer installed in the fuel line between the fuel pump and the SU carburetor's float chamber of Rolls-Royce Merlin engines used in Spitfires and Hurricanes. Mrs. Schilling's orifice limited fuel flow, preventing this issue and giving pilots a critical edge in dogfights. This stopgap fix was finally overcome in 1943 with the invention of the Bendix-Stromberg pressure carburetor. The prototype Spitfire, K5054, took to the skies in March 1936. Test pilots were stunned. It climbed like a homesick angel and turned tighter than anything they'd flown. But mass producing it? This was another story. The Spitfire's complex curves made it difficult to build. Factories scrambled. Workers trained on the fly. The challenge of manufacturing the Spitfire went far beyond ordinary assembly line work. Its elliptical wings and sleek fuselage demanded precision and skill that stretched the limits of the 1930s industrial techniques. Sheet metal workers, many of whom had never built an aircraft before, had to master new methods almost overnight. Riveters, machinists, and inspectors worked side by side, often under the pressure of looming deadlines and the threat of war. Mistakes were costly, but the urgency of the moment drove innovation. Jigs and templates were invented on the spot, and entire communities rallied to support the effort. The result was not just an airplane, but a testament to British ingenuity and determination, a machine born from chaos, yet destined to bring order to the skies. But by 1938, the first operational Spitfires entered RAF service, just in time for the storm gathering over Europe. Summer 1940. Britain stands alone. The Luftwaffe prepares to crush the RAF and pave the way for invasion. Operation Sea Lion was Nazi Germany's planned invasion of Britain in 1940, contingent on achieving air and naval superiority over the English Channel. Despite assembling over 2,000 barges and planning to land over 160,000 troops along the southeast coast, the Luftwaffe failed to defeat the RAF during the Battle of Britain. The RAF has two main fighters, the rugged Hawker Hurricane and the Spitfire. Contrary to popular belief, Hurricanes shoot down more enemy aircraft, but the Spitfire took on the Luftwaffe's best, the Bf-109s, in swirling dogfights thousands of feet above the English countryside. The Spitfire's strengths were clear. It could outturn the Bf-109. It had better visibility. It handled beautifully at high speed. And it inspired confidence even in the terrified 19-year-old pilots. Pilots described the Spitfire as an extension of your body. The 109, by comparison, felt like a machine. The Spitfire felt like a partner. But the cost was high. Many pilots never returned. Those who did carried memories of fire, fear, and friends lost. Still, the RAF held alive. And when Churchill said, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few," he was talking about the pilots and the machines that carried them. In the summer skies over Britain, the Spitfire and Hurricane were more than machines. They were lifelines and trusted companions. Pilots spoke of them with reverence, knowing that survival depended on the harmony between human instinct and mechanical precision. The Spitfire's graceful agility and the Hurricane's rugged reliability gave these young aviators confidence to face overwhelming odds. Each aircraft became an extension of the pilot's will, turning fear into resolve and transforming the cockpit into a sanctuary where courage and engineering fused into a single heartbeat. The Spitfire didn't just win the Battle of Britain, it kept evolving, faster, stronger, deadlier. MKV, the workhorse of the mid-war years, Mk1X, the answer to the German FW190, a masterpiece of balance and power. MKX-1V, Griffin-powered, brutally fast, and capable of chasing V-1 flying bombs. Then there were the oddballs, photo recon Spitfires, unarmed, unpainted, and so fast nothing could catch them. Seafires, naval Spitfires that loved flying and hated landing on carriers. Clipped wing variants, trading elegance for roll rate. By war's end, the Spitfire had more versions than a smartphone operating system. The Spitfire wasn't just Britain's guardian, it became a global warrior. In Malta, Spitfires defended the island against overwhelming odds. In North Africa, they adapted to sand, heat, and desert warfare. In Burma, they fought in monsoon skies. In Australia, they defended against Japanese raids. Pilots from Poland, Canada, New Zealand, France, and the US all flew Spitfires, and many became aces in them. Wherever the Spitfire went, it earned respect. Ask any pilot who flew a Spitfire, and you'll hear the same thing. It felt alive. The controls were light. The response was instant. The aircraft seemed to anticipate your next move. One pilot said, "You don't fly a Spitfire, you wear it." Another joked, "It was the only aircraft that made you look good, even when you weren't." But beneath the humor was deep respect. The Spitfire brought many of them home when nothing else could. The bond between man and machine can clearly be seen in the heartfelt story of World War II Canadian Spitfire pilot Mary Neal.
Flag Spitfire is the same airplane that you see here. And it was after D-Day in Normandy in France. And I was shot down by ground fire. And I was burned while I was getting out of the airplane. I bailed out. And the Germans picked me up almost immediately. And I wound up in a makeshift hospital, prisoner of war hospital. And fortunately, I was only there for 43 days. And during that period, the army had broken through the German lines and they liberated the hospital. So I was able to get out of the hospital. Well, in September of 1992, my family, my wife and I, and my family, we went back to Normandy. We dug up an airplane, and you see how big the propeller is on it? And I brought one of those blades back with me. But unfortunately, a short time after, they notified me. They said, "I'm sorry to tell you, but that was not your airplane. That was a P-51. Pardon no, the propeller was the same." So anyway, some people who saw the newspaper report, they said, "Well, we really know where it is." So we went back the second time. That's when we dug up the airplane, but it was a real one.
After the war, the world moved on to jets. But the Spitfire wasn't done. It served as a trainer, a reconnaissance aircraft, and even in frontline roles for smaller air forces. The RAF finally retired its Spitfire in the 1950s, nearly 2 decades after its first flight. Not bad for a design drawn up before television was mainstream. Today, around 60 Spitfires still fly, lovingly restored, meticulously maintained, and flown with reverence. You can see them at the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, IWM Duxford, the RAF Museum, the National Air and Space Museum, the Tomorrow Aviation Museum, and private collections around the world. When a Spitfire takes off today, people stop. They look up and they listen, because the sound of a Merlin isn't just noise, it's history, alive and airborne. The Spitfire wasn't the most produced fighter of World War II. It wasn't the toughest. It wasn't the most heavily armored, but it was the most beloved. It represented hope when hope was scarce. It proved that engineering and elegance could coexist. And it showed that sometimes beauty really can save the day. As long as one Spitfire flies, the story of courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice will never fade. If you've enjoyed this dive into one of the most fascinating airplanes ever built, mixed with a blend of research, history, and a touch of humor, please like, comment, and subscribe. Space Extra, out.